What's going on, everybody? Today we're talking about the Communist Manifesto. And let me tell you, there's some big ideas in there, trust me. Just a few things to keep in mind before we start the video. First of all, this is going to be a subjective list, so it's just a list that I put together, and not everybody's going to agree with me all the time on which ideas are the most important ones and how I sort of ranked them. So, that's just sort of my take on it, and yours might be different. That's okay. Generally, I just sort of feel like everybody should make up their own mind about how good or bad some of these ideas are. There's not going to be judgment here from my side. I'm just here to summarize. All right, with that out of the way, welcome to our top 10 ideas from the Communist Manifesto. Number 10. There are two classes in society. Let's just start with the obvious one here. The Communist Manifesto says that there are basically two classes in our society, the bourgeoisie or ruling class and the proletariat or working class. Number 9. The bourgeoisie is the oppressing class. They own the means of production, and Marx says that whoever controls the money controls society. To him, it's all about power. And this is, I would argue, some classic Marxist/postmodern way of thinking. In Marx's mind, the bourgeoisie exploits workers, infuses society with a grow or die mentality, which is just sort of tied to the harsh competition in the marketplace, makes capitalism global and trades across borders, and creates enormous industrial cities. This one is really interesting because I looked it up, and in 1848, when the Communist Manifesto was written, London was the most populous city of the world, and it had about 2 million people. And Tokyo today, which is, as of this moment, the most populous city, has 37 million people. Which, I guess the bourgeoisie has kept on going making cities. Number 8. The proletariat is the oppressed class. The proletariat, or called working class, that's people that live solely off their work. They survive just off of their wage labor and have no capital whatsoever. Now the division of labor comes in here and renders them insignificant and replaceable by making the tasks that they perform easy and repetitive. A task that's easy and repetitive can easily be done by anyone else really. So that means every worker is becoming more replaceable, and the bourgeoisie can thereby play the workers off of each other and lower their wages. And that's what's happening, hence the oppressed class. Number 7. History is the history of class struggle. History is defined by the struggle between the ruling and the oppressed class. This relationship is what drives history, and the Communist Manifesto includes some examples here. One of them being Rome, with the patricians ruling and the plebeians being slaves, and the other one being feudal lords and serfs in the Middle Ages. Number 6. The oppression didn't change, just the oppressors changed. In the feudal system, nobility and the church had the power, and now the industrialists have the power. People aren't being oppressed by lords and the church anymore, now they're being oppressed by the bourgeoisie. In feudal societies, poor farmers worked on the land of the nobility, and now it's just very similar with poor factory workers working in the factories of the industrialists. So feudalism was replaced by capitalism and the markets. But what stayed the same is that workers still have to sell their labor power, and now the bourgeoisie profits and not the nobility. Number 5. Criticisms of communism can be easily rejected. This is a part of the manifesto where Marx and Engels just sort of throw shade at other people criticizing communism, and they do address a few specific criticisms. The first one being that communism wants to abolish freedom, to which they say yes, communism does want to abolish freedom, specifically the freedom to exploit other people. Another criticism is communism wants to take away countries, to which they also say yes, but the working man just has no country to begin with. To criticism from religious, philosophical, or ideological standpoints, Marx and Engels say that that's just laughable and just kind of shrug it off. Number 4. Education should be free. All children should go to public school. Children's factories should be abolished, but the education can be combined with industrial production. And apparently, communist and ex-communist countries do pretty well in this department. A few years ago, my dad, who works at a university in Western Europe, actually told me that there are a lot of good academics that come out of Eastern Europe, and generally, the Eastern European countries are known to have had pretty good education systems within communism, which is a stark contrast to the reputation of communist countries otherwise in Western Europe. Number 3. Private property isn't necessary and should be abolished. Alright, we're really getting into the heavy stuff here. The bourgeoisie believes that private property is necessary because otherwise nothing would ever be produced, which is an argument that you can still hear today all the time. But the Communist Manifesto says that no, proletarians already don't have any property and they only have wages to get by. So for 9 out of 10 people, private property already doesn't exist. And yet, they still work, even without the incentive of property, without being able to build up capital for themselves. So the Communist Manifesto makes a point that private property isn't needed to incentivize people to work. They will work even without private property. Number 2, nationalization is key. Inheritance and land ownership should be abolished. All land must be nationalized, because land is what creates inequality among the classes. The property of immigrants, which is people that are moved out of the country, must be confiscated, and everyone who would undermine the rule of the proletariat must also have their property be confiscated. The desired result of this is the overall goal of the communist movement, which is redistribution of wealth to everyone across society. So in short, the means of production need to be nationalized. And finally, number 1, the workers need to overthrow capitalism. Simply because that's the only way it will collapse and the oppression will end. The workers that were created by capitalism must band together and overthrow the exact system that created them. Communists and the proletariat have the same aim here: overthrow capitalism and claim power. So the communist movement is the global proletarian movement that works in all countries to overthrow capitalism. Have I mentioned that they want to overthrow capitalism? Yep, they do. Alright, that's it for this top 10 list. Let me know if you like this video format. I'm thinking I'll probably be doing more of this kind of video, just because I like doing them, and maybe they're also interesting for some of you out there. So yeah, that's, well, I don't got anything to say anymore. That's awkward.